I'm Beth Robb Sender. I'm the chair of the steering committee of the Women to Women Giving Circle at the Illinois Prairie Community Foundation. And I want to thank you all for signing up to join us today. As you all may know, the Women to Women Giving Circle generally has a fall and a spring forum. And unfortunately, we weren't able to have our spring forum. And at each of those forums, we offer a presentation. The last several times that we've offered this, we've been talking about trauma and how it affects children and their families. And we were hoping to offer a presentation about resilience, which is something we all need right now. But unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we weren't able to do that, but we hope to present it later. And then in the summer, we offer a summer solstice, which I know we all enjoy and was supposed to be this afternoon. Mm-hmm. And at that presentation, some of our grantees tell us how they've used the grants that we've provided to them, and often tell us some stories about how the grant has changed people's lives, how they've enjoyed working and collaborating, because one of our requirements is that organizations collaborate with at least one other organization in providing services to women and children. We're going to offer some information about how the grants have been used later in the summer. Frankly, the organizations that have received these grants are working under the gun and right now offering pretty necessary services, and we didn't want to burden them any further with putting something together early in the summer, knowing that with COVID-19 and all the changes that has required, we just didn't want to put any more work on folks. So look for that later in the summer. In the last couple of summers, Pat Grog has hosted some conversations at various restaurants where we've had 20 or so folks who just come and we talk, and we invite a woman who has something to say, tell a story about her, and it's been pretty wide open, but we've had some really good communication. We didn't want to let that go. So what we have done is we've put together 3 alternatives here on Zoom. They're called Caring Conversations, and they are topical. One is today, which I'll get into in just a minute, but next Tuesday, June 30th, 12 to 1:30, we are inviting Linda Foster, who's the president of the NAACP locally, and Doris Houston, who is, I don't have her exact title, but she is overseeing issues of diversity at Illinois State University, and they will both talk. It's about race. And then July 9th, 8:30 to 10, Marianne Pullen from Home Sweet Home Mission and Tara Ingham from the Midwest Food Bank are going to talk about food insecurity and housing in the time of COVID-19. So those are really excellent presentations that we're looking forward to. Today, we are fortunate to have Dayna Brown, who's with Unit 5, and she's going to tell us about what pivots Unit 5 did in order to serve the children and families within the district when they had to go to remote learning, and is also going to emphasize or talk about how children were fed, because I think she'll give you some statistics about how important the schools are in feeding children during the school year. And then Angie Grubic, who's a first grade teacher at Glen School, is going to talk about how the pivot to remote learning affected her and her students in first grade at Glen. So Dayna will go first and then Angie will. And if you have questions, what we're suggesting is that you write your questions in your chat box and we'll save those questions to the end of the presentations. And right now, if you're not speaking, if you're not supposed to be speaking, I'd ask you all, and I think you have, is put your buttons on mute. You can either leave your video on because it's kind of nice to see faces, but if you prefer to be incognito, that's fine too. So we look forward to just an engaging, spirited conversation today. And thank you all for experimenting with us and trying this. So Dayna, I'd ask you if you'd like to just tell us your official title, because I know you have one, and then share with us how Uni5 has been addressing this on the global level.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Dayna Brown. I'm the Director of Communications and Community Relations for Unit 5. I'm excited to share the floor with Angie today. It's been a unique time in Unit 5 these last few months, to say the least. And I just want to go back to, I'm going to go back to March 7th. I was on a train on the way home from Chicago. I think it was a Saturday, from our 25th anniversary celebration in Chicago. And my phone started to blow up. And it was one of those days I thought, I'm going to put away my phone and not do anything. And as soon as you say that, the world is going to be shut down with a pandemic, right? So that was March 7th. And on our way home on the train, we could see things changing. You know, every time someone coughed, we looked, we had hand sanitizer with us, but we still weren't at the point where we thought the world would shut down. Fast forward to March 13th. We knew as a district, if we could get to spring break, that would give us the time we needed to prepare and plan and be ready for this. I think, and I don't want to steal Angie's thunder, so if I start to, just wave your hands feverishly and I will stop, Angie. But Unit 5 did not have an e-learning plan, and that was very strategic because we felt that it was better to make up snow days in person, that remote learning could not replace a day with the teacher. So we didn't have a plan. We took a lot of flack for that. But that was really strategic because we didn't feel we needed one, because we knew when we were out of school for a snow day, we wanted to make those days up. We did not plan on a worldwide pandemic that would literally shut things down. So on March 13th, we learned that we weren't going to make it to spring break. We were going to close. And it was the most unreal feeling ever, because not only were we worried about e-learning, but we know that about 35% of Unit 5 is low income. And those students get breakfast and lunch in school. So the thought came, where are they going to get those meals? So immediately we looked at our food service and how could we provide meals? So we provided breakfast and lunch in three or four schools for that first week. It might have actually been 5. And we realized that's great for people who had cars, but a lot of people in this community do not have cars. So we thought we are going to have to take these meals mobile if we want people to get them. So we put our lunches on 19 different buses and delivered them out twice a week, making sure that on one day they'd get 2 days worth of food, on the other day they'd get 3 days worth of food. And when you go from the middle of March until this past Wednesday, we have served 130,000 meals. And I think it's important to note that Unit 5 did not have a summer program to this degree. We had never taken food mobile. We've talked about it, and this really pushed us into that, and I don't think we'll ever go back. I think we'll continue to do that moving forward because we know it's such a need for our students. We're actually going to wrap up that program next Monday, the 29th. And then we are going to go back to a building-based meal program and work at ways we can help facilitate getting meals to people who need. And in part, we need to do that to allow our food service staff, to take a breath. I mean, while a lot of people were working at home, They were literally coming in every day with their mask, preparing meals, loading them onto buses. We had to borrow warmers, coolers, you name it, we borrowed it. We had a truck parked outside one of our schools that was refrigerated. We don't own a refrigerated truck. So all of these things we never thought we would need. It was beyond, if you spent 5 minutes there and watched the assembly line of preparing, we were putting out on most days about 3,000 or 4,000 meals. And it was just incredible to see it. And you would think that, oh, they'll put some peanut butter and jelly, you'll get an Uncrustable. No, they did fresh vegetables, fresh fruit. I've never been more proud of the food service staff at Unit 5. It was really, really incredible and actually looked quite delicious. So that was an important part. But this was an unusual time, and we knew that breakfast and lunch may not be enough. So how are we going to continue to support our families? There was different levels of support needed. So some of our families are low income and have relationships built with social service agencies. They knew where to go to get help. A lot of our families don't have relationships with social service agencies because they've never needed that support before. So when the world stopped and they may have lost their job, they didn't know where to go. So they came to the school district for help. And we were so happy to help facilitate that. And I'm looking out because she moved. Cindy Rogers is here, and she is one of our family coordinators. And our family coordinators partner, they build a relationship between the schools and the home in our schools. And they were reaching out to people, seeing what their needs were. And dinner, we found out dinner's in need, that it was a lot. When people were trying to help their kids learn during the day, they, preparing a dinner meal was really, really stressful and challenging for some. So we partnered with the United Way and distributed upwards of 4,000 dinner meals for several weeks at 2 different locations. And they were cold meals. They were provided by local businesses. And it really helped. It helped bridge that gap until people could kind of get used to their new normal. And so we did that as well. In addition to the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, people need snacks, right? So Cindy and several other of our family coordinators, they would follow the buses that had the lunches, and they would pass out something special every week. Sometimes it was a snack bag for the weekend. Sometimes it was the coveted toilet paper. You should have seen the crowds the week we passed out toilet paper. Sometimes it was paper towel. We were really lucky to be able to partner with Eastview and Midwest Food Bank to get some of these items. And we would pass these out. So in addition to getting their meals, they would get other supplies as needed. And food was important. We all know food is important. Well, before I move out of food, I want to mention one other thing. We also did emergency food bags. We have some families that just needed that little extra support. So we did more than 2,000 emergency food boxes that our staff dropped off on people's porches and would ring the doorbell and walk away to maintain social distancing. And we were able to get the food from Eastern Illinois Food Bank in Champaign, and they would drop off just pallets of food. We would bag them up and then take them out. And it's really a challenge, serving people we're all good at, but how do you serve people when you have to social distance from the people who pack food? So one day, 2 pallets of food were dropped in my driveway early on, and my husband and I went out there and we packed about, well, I don't remember, Cindy, I think it was like 300 bags of food. And I have a whole new respect for the people who do that, because let me tell you, it was either pack it or leave it in my driveway. So we just kept going. But you had to come up with creative ways that you could do these things. And if it weren't for the partnerships with United Way, Eastern Illinois Food Bank, Eastview Christian Church, Midwest Food Bank, that wouldn't have been possible. In addition to food, we were all so worried about the social emotional well-being of kids. We were telling kids nothing's open and you have to stay home. Now, for most of us, if that were the case, we have enough stuff in our house where we could entertain little ones. There are a lot of families that don't have that. So we partnered with the Promise Council, and actually the Drake Zimmerman and Jan Alfine donor fund through the Community Foundation, as well as the Children's Museum, McLean County Ag in the Classroom, and the YWCA. And we did different learning packets and like fun and games. So one week we would put out a STEM packet from the Children's Museum. Last week we put out Ag in the Classroom packets. And it was really important that these packets had everything in them they needed, because a lot of our families don't have the items they need at home. So those were really, really fun and exciting. And we are so grateful to our community to reach out to us and offer that. And then the Drake and Jan Fund, Drake asked me, he goes, what do you need? He goes, what can we help you with? And I said, you know what? I've got food. I can find food. We just got USDA boxes. That's my wrap up. We just got USDA boxes. We're getting fresh produce. But you know what I don't have? I don't have anything to help keep kids engaged outside of remote learning. So they were so generous and donated $3,000. And we went out and we bought art supplies and coloring books and frisbees and bubbles and things that kids could do outside and they could do in their homes. And I know Cindy is here, and when she would pass these out, she's come and she's distributed these to their families. They were so excited. These are a lot of families that don't get a lot of these opportunities. So it was really, really amazing for us to be able to help them with that social emotional gift as well. And I'm just looking at my notes a little bit to see what's next. You know, a big question is what's next. I'll be honest, we considered ending meals on Monday. We were going to be done. We needed a break. And then we came back and we said, our families need this. So we figured out a way that we're going to take off the 3 days, and then we're going to come right back at it. And it's just the dedication of our staff and the willingness to work so hard. I can't say enough about the job the teachers did in the classroom and their remote classroom, because that was just, they were unsung heroes with that. But the academics was just one piece of it. There were so many other pieces going on, passing out hotspots and devices and all of that. And it was just an amazing partnership. So I'm going to throw to Angie there, unless there's and save any questions for after. Is that how you want to do it?
Yeah, that's what I would like to do. And if you have questions, you haven't typed them into the chat box down at the bottom, please do. And I don't think we've had any yet. So come on, people. We know you have questions. Let me just say before, thank you, Dayna, that I became familiar with Angie because my husband, Alan, decided to offer his services to volunteer. And he wanted to volunteer at Glen because it's right behind our house. And so he was connected with Angie's first grade. And I thought this was going to be an interesting pairing, because any of you who know my husband, he has pretty dry sense of humor. But as I've said often, and he's sitting here and he may not appreciate this, but I said he really never grew up. So I think he relates well with first graders. And I was fortunate to go in one time with Alan and Mrs. Grubic and met the first graders. So when we talked about presenting on how the schools pivoted to remote learning, I immediately thought of Angie, because she actually invited Alan, my husband, to attend some of their remote learning sessions, and shared with him some of the challenges and the joys of remote learning. And I thought that everyone would really enjoy learning about how one teacher was able to do this. So Angie, I'm going to pass it to you. And thanks again for sharing.
Thank you. And Dayna, I have to say, when you were talking about the pride in Unit 5 and the way everybody got together, I'm gonna try not to get emotional, but I pulled up to Kingsley Junior High one day to replace my computer, and seeing all the buses get loaded with food and just the teamwork and effort that it took was just inspiring. I've never been prouder than the district I work for going through this, so thank you. I will confess right now, I'm not a super good speaker, especially in front of adults. I love talking to kids, so I have prepared a slideshow, not only so you have something else to look at, but to kind of keep me on track. So I'm gonna quickly, actually it won't let me share. It says host disabled, but that's okay. I can open it up on my screen and you guys are still stuck with seeing me. So we started remote learning. Oh, to tell a little bit about me, sorry. I've been teaching first grade at Glenn for 9 years. And I actually came to teaching later in life because I was active duty Navy before I did go back to school as a non-traditional student to teach. And through that, I feel really lucky that I've been able to have 2 careers that I absolutely love. But I will say, I originally joined the Navy to help me get through college and become a teacher. So I feel pretty lucky that I have both of the best worlds. So I've been at Glenn for 9 years, and currently before the remote learning started, we had 260 students enrolled. If you know anything about Glenn, it's a pretty small community school. There's 2 classes of kindergarten through 5th grade. And we are about 41% free and reduced income, but we have a really wide variety of students and culture at Glenn. But the best thing I want to highlight about Glenn is we have a very close-knit community and really a close-knit family and staff. We really work together well. Three weeks of, in the elementary level, K through 5, it would have been choice boards. And these choice boards included both paper, pencil, hands-on activities, as well as some online or digital activities. And we had to vary that because at the time of this remote learning, K through 5 did not have their own computer devices to be able to do that. And you cannot expect families to all have some type of device for a first grader or kindergartner to use. Luckily, I believe that will change for next year if anything else changes. So that will be a big plus. So if you think about it, on March 16th, all the teachers came together, staff, support staff, and started preparing for remote learning at home. And when we prepared for this, we really had to consider and think of what were families going to have at home to be able to use to make a home classroom. So we tried to make it very doable. Instead of counting blocks or counters at school that we might have, how about scoop out a cup of Cheerios and count those, or really thinking out of the box of some learning instead of practicing fractions by folding papers in half. What if you would make a recipe with your family and work on the cup, 1/2 cup, and fractions like that. So we try to be very creative in how we plan to make it available for all families. That was one good thing that we really thought about. And then during this time and this professional collaboration, it was amazing how, whether you're a classroom teacher or a school psychologist, or the LBS one, the learning behavior specialist. We all really came together to plan and prepare for that so that families would have it at home. And if you want to know what remote learning looks like in first grade, I will tell you, I love technology, but I've never been on a video chat before as an adult, let alone trying to get 25, 6, and 7-year-olds on the computer and doing a video chat. So the first one I did, I truly just wanted to disconnect and start crying. If you want to know the truth, it was quite horrendous. My kids did not know how to mute. And if you think of 26 of us all talking and really being excited to see each other because we hadn't seen each other for a while, it was quite an experience. So I learned a lot just from that first time. And I will say by the end of May and middle of May, when we had our last whole class remote learning, we actually had a talent show, and it was amazing. Our kids took time. They knew how to mute themselves. They knew when it was time to talk and to share. We learned how to thumbs up, thumbs down if you yes or no. We learned how to answer math questions by using your fingers up on top of your head like antlers instead of shouting out an answer or writing it down. It was quite an amazing experience and growth to see the way the kids were able to use the conferencing online. But to help me connect with my families, every day I had an email go out. Now, when we first started, I will say, I feel like everybody was overwhelmed, but to think of our families, if you think of a family with 1, 2, 3, or 4 children, getting an email from that child's teacher every day, that's 4 emails. Thinking about if you get an email from the principal, school, or secretary, that's 5 emails, plus any other emails going out. So quickly I learned families were overwhelmed with information, which you can look at it both ways. It's good because you want them to have every information, everything available to them. But at the same point, you have families disconnecting because it is just too much. So through a lot of learning and we learned it's called like dosing information. So then giving out small bits of information, and the districts really took over and said, let the teachers be the point of contact. So I did the daily email, and if a family member needed something, I was the one to then point of contact to my principal in the district. So that really helped out a lot to lessen the amount of information to go out to families, but yet they still had a point of contact to help with the district. Besides the daily email communication, I did a weekly whole class meeting with my kids, and that's where we gradually learned how to do digital meetings. And then I had a lot of families. I offered it up, and it took a little while for families to want it, but I had a lot of one-on-one meetings with my kids. And sometimes we would read a book together. Sometimes I had a math game or something we'd play together. Sometimes my kids, we just talked about what they did during the day, or what was a highlight, or what is something they're just really struggling with. So these one-on-one meetings became one of my students who in the classroom was really introverted and did not really speak out much. It kind of took a lot. Well, this little guy ended up being my one meeting with me about twice a week. And we met, and sometimes we did reading or math together, or we did something. Sometimes he literally just wanted to talk to me and show me a drawing that he's done. I got to see he has this room in his bedroom full of all the work he's done. And so they really changed as the needs of my kids went. Besides the meetings, as some of you are teachers and educators and parents, when these things tend to happen, quickly you are looking for how to help the best you can. How can you keep doing your job the best you can? And so I did a lot of free webinars with different academic people and leading researchers. And one of the webinars I did was by Lucy Calkins, and it was how to but how to continue reading skills while everything is remote. And one of the quotes that she came out with was, "Nurturing growth is more important than measuring growth right now." And I shared that with the rest of the teachers at Glenn, and we really talked about that, how yes, as teachers, academics, that's what we want for our kids, but we really stepped back and yes, academics was important, but really we just want to nurture them and make sure they're taken care of right now. So all the work we did, we didn't necessarily measure it as putting something in the report card. We really just tried to provide things that was going to keep them learning, to keep them inquiring, to keep them interested in school. So that was just kind of the mindset. After I went through that webinar, is the mindset I took for the rest of this time, is just how can I help my kids continuing to want to learn. With anything that we go through, you can think of the positives and negatives. And I have a list here, and you would think that the negatives, the cons, would be really long. And of course, there are some things that, quite frankly, just stunk about remote learning, because we want to be with the kids. We want to have that hands-on. We want to build those relationships. But believe it or not, there were some things that went really well. So I'll start with the positives first. Is I got deeper relationships with not only my students I was able to see one-on-one and in small groups, but really the families. Think about if you have a job and then all of a sudden you are now working from home. Not only are you working from home, now you're being your child's teacher. I'm not sure about your experience with your kids. I love teaching, but teaching my own children was like a whole nother story. So I feel like I got to learn about my families a lot more, and they would come, whether phone calls, video chats, or emails, ask for advice, how they can help, what can they do. So really I did learn more about my families and deeper relationships with them. And then even our staff, we're a really close staff anyway, but we knew, hey, how are you able to share your screen when you're doing this video? You knew who you could go to, and we were all really supporting each other to get through this. Another positive is the creative learning. Like how I said, we don't have math manipulatives anymore, but we can take a scoop of cereal or something to count and make a collection of things like that. Go on a nature walk and make a chart of all the living or non-living things that you saw in your neighborhood. It was really quite interesting, the different strategies and new things that we could come up with. By the end, I do believe families were like, okay, I'm done. We're fighting with my child back and forth. And I totally understand that. But I also think there is this period where families really got empowered, that they can really do so much more. And they were able to see how much their child is really able to do. So it was eye-opening and great to see. There, of course, was some negatives, some things that were really hard.
So I think, Angie, if you can hear me, where'd you go? Maybe she's gonna
Try to jump back in,
jump
maybe.
back in, yeah. So let's just, if you all don't mind pausing for just a minute, we'll see if
Beth?
she jumps back in.
I forgot something. Can I fill this time while she's coming back in?
Sure.
Angie pointed out that not everyone has the same things at home. So in addition to all the other things, we also did provide school supply packs. Their school supplies were in school. We didn't have time. You know, some teachers were forward thinking and said to the kids, take everything home with you. But not everyone thought about that. So we had to do school supply kits for kids as they were at home because they just didn't have those items. One of the funniest things I had to do is I sent someone to the dollar store and I said, buy every pencil sharpener they have. Because if I said to everyone right now, go find a pencil sharpener in your house, I don't know that I could do that. And I have every supply possible, but I have a bunch of unsharpened pencils. So we knew that pencil sharpeners were going to be key. So we went out and bought every pencil sharpener we have. The other thing we also did was hygiene. I see Angie's back. So
Yep.
Angie, I was just filling a little time for you while you were gone. I was saying we offered school supplies to kids who didn't have them at home, especially pencil sharpeners, because nobody has a pencil sharpener at home anymore.
Thank you so much. Hey, you know what's really terrible about video conferencing too? Your internet can lose at any time and all of a sudden you've lost your meeting.
Right. Angie, just so you know, you cut out right when you were going to start talking about the cons. So that was number one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like I might be going over, so I'll try to go a little bit quickly. Yeah, so it's interesting that one of the meetings that Alan was in with me, my audio actually quit working. And so my kids couldn't hear me at all. And since I was the host of the meeting, if I would have logged out, I would have lost them. So that was definitely a con. But then a pro was there was a parent in my classroom who was a teacher and kind of took over my meeting by using chat with me. So definitely creativity and teamwork all around. Inconsistent internet, I can say that for myself. There's 3 of us living in my house right now. My oldest son is at Illinois State University and his classes of course went all online, and then my husband's working at home as well. So we really fought over our internet availability, and I actually scheduled my class meetings around their work and school meetings as well. I did have students move during this time, whether they moved because they have a loss of a job and no income to afford where they're at, or they simply couldn't handle the kids and remote learning. They needed more family support, so they moved closer to family. The other thing that was hard, but I know Dayna said a little bit of it that I was going to get to, is we can't expect all families to have the classroom supplies at home, so we had to get creative. When I did find that Glenn could get something, or our Promise Council could help us get something, like they got a deck of cards or stuff like that, they were able to, and our principal, I gotta say, she made a lot of drop-offs at doors when we found out they needed pencil or paper or a deck of cards, dice. We use a lot of things like that. So even if we were able to find out they lacked something that we could provide, I feel strongly the district did a really good job of trying to help that support. And the last thing that's a con that I know we're getting to is it was emotionally really hard for a lot of the kids to lose that social with their classroom. And think about if you are an only child, you went from having your social interactions at school to at home and not even be able to have friends over to play. One of the meetings I had with one of my students, she is an only child, and I remember her mom called me and asked me if I could just talk to her for a while because she was really down. And when I got to talk to her and everything, I said, well, you know, we've talked how much you like to go on bike rides. You can still go on bike rides and do that. And she said, well, she tried to go on a bike ride with Dad, but they always went to this candy shop and got some candy, and then they would go to the playground and play in the playground. Well, both of those things are closed and not available. So really, young children lost a lot of things they looked forward to, simple as going to the playground or playing basketball with some friends. So that's something we tried to work around, come up with other things that we could do. But I know all the teachers and Glenn, we kind of plan some more emotional support things into our class meetings. And as a whole school, oftentimes we would start our class meeting with a circle, which we do this in the classroom. We kind of greet each other, have a question like, hey, how are you doing? What did you do was fun today? Or when you got sad at your brother today, how were you able to cope with it? So we did a lot of talking. Our school had remote dress-up days. So even though we weren't in school, say Wednesday, we wore purple, or we did fun dress-up days to kind of keep that morality up. We did have a talent show at the end of the year. And the teachers got together, we planned we sold it as, instead of working on their choice boards a day, we planned a virtual family fun day, which is kind of like a field day of outside activities and inside activities to get more movement in for some happiness. We had some dance parties. Believe it or not, we had scavenger hunts during a class meeting where they found something blue or find 3 things that are circles in your house, something like that. We did a lot of directed drawing together online, and a lot of the teachers, myself included, we sent a lot of mail through the mail to our kids, even whether it was a silly knock knock joke or a picture for them to color, just to kind of keep that morality up and those connections with our kids. I think that is about all I have to share. I just want to say thank you for your patience with me. I'm not a super great speaker, I'll take that, but that is remote learning in the nutshell in first grade.
Thanks, Angie. And I'm really sorry we didn't get to see your slideshow, because I saw it yesterday and I was wowed by it. You can tell she's a teacher because there's lots of colors in it, and it was one of the best I've ever seen, and I'm really sorry that everyone didn't get to see it.
Angie, if you want to send that to me, it's Michele. If you want to send it to me, I can post it on our website when I also make this link for the video available.
I will, thank you.
Thank you.
I see one question from Karen Major to either one of you, but did all the students have the technology they needed, and are there children who are not able to participate at all in e-learning?
I can talk from my classroom. Not all families have the technology device for this part of remote learning, and some families you'd find out maybe all they have is a cell phone to use for different things, which is not enough. But I know that's going to change for next year, so there will be more support for families if we are forced to do some type of remote learning.
So I could talk a little to that. Technically, our 6th through 12th, they all have one-to-one devices. So they did have online learning. Our pre-K through 5 went with the choice boards. So they could continue to learn without a device. It was a challenge, and we know that a lot of teachers wanted to have that face-to-face. So Angie, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was kind of like extra on top of the choice boards. The choice boards are really what they needed to do. And a choice board, if you can imagine, is like a calendar with different things, and you kind of pick what you do. And
yes, we did not have to. as K through 5, it wasn't required to have online meetings, correct?
So just this last week, the district did purchase devices. We are going one-to-one from pre-K through 5. And I know the question is, how do you do that for pre-K through 5? We just felt that if we are remote learning in the fall, we will be prepared. If we are not remote learning in the fall, we will use these to enhance learning in the classroom. Kids aren't going to sit on devices all day if we're in the schools. That was a big concern, and I can reassure everyone, and Angie's nodding, that's not the plan. But we need to be prepared for whatever can happen. So maybe that means that during a snow day, we can have a remote learning day because people do have access to devices. So we have taken care of that. I think Leanna had a question for me.
Right, Leanna had a question.
And she's muted.
Leanna, you need to unmute.
Leanna, can you type your question in?
Did we lose Leanna?
We may have. Oh, no, no, we lost her, I think. Well, that's a bummer. Maybe she'll hop back in.
Well, while we're waiting on Leanna, I could share that the last piece that I didn't share is hygiene products. We know that a lot, and cleaning products, I keep remembering these things. We distributed hygiene and cleaning products to our families. Those are very expensive items. And with a lot of our families out of work, those were items that we heard often families needed. So we worked with the NAACP, we worked with the Promise Council, we worked with Eastview. We received 30,000 bottles of that little hotel body wash, and I had my administrative assistant back them up. So we distributed those items as well. We really tried to think of any way we could help take the stress off a family during this very difficult time.
Leanna, you're back. You want to try again? Oh, still can't hear you.
Michele, can you unmute her as the host?
She is unmuted. I don't know if her sound is not hooked up on her computer. Can you type the question in, Leanna? Let's give her a minute.
Other questions as Leanna's trying to type? So you're probably going to shoot me, Dayna. Well, that was going to be my question, is summer and fall plans. What are they?
Well, that's actually, very interestingly enough, about 20 minutes before I got on this call, the state released the guidelines for fall in a 63-page document. So I haven't read them all. It did jump out at me, masks are required. That was a big jump out. But it's interesting because they said you have to follow IDPH guidelines and masks are required. Well, is it a guideline or is it a requirement? So there's a lot of districts that are looking back on. Unit 5 has put together a pandemic committee. It's about 38 people. We have parents, we have union representation, we have teachers and administrative assistants and paraprofessionals that have been selected by the union. We have administrators, we have a representative from the health department and the ROE and the laborers. And we are using these people as an advisory task force to put together the plan. You'll see in the news this week that actually one big district approved their plan yesterday night or Monday night. And there's a lot of pressure, and Angie could attest to this. People want to know what's happening. Unit 5 felt really strongly that it would be premature to put anything out until we knew what the state required. We felt that would cause confusion with families. And what would be, we want to base our decisions on data and rationale, and what would we be basing it on if we didn't have that? So every day I tell people to climb off the ledge, take a breath. We're all working together as hard as we can, and we hope to have something soon. And I don't think it would be remiss to say we also are transitioning superintendents. So it's like a pandemic is hard enough, but we are transitioning from one superintendent to another on July 1st. So Dr. Weichel has been here and has been working with us, but she's really not officially the superintendent until July 1st. So that's a little bit of challenge. So I did want to share that we did start some IHSA sports this week. Angie might not even know this yet. It's very new. They can do some conditioning, and we started some marching band this week. And that was a big step for us. But will the fall be, I'm going to have someone, I can't read and talk. Will the fall be remote learning? Will it be a combination? Will it be a shortened day? We don't know. We're planning for every and all scenario. I can tell you that we moved very quickly with the help of our teachers. And was it perfect? No. I think anytime you do something like this, it's not going to be a perfect. I think we did pretty darn well. And if we start in school and have to go to remote learning because there's a spike, we'll be ready, and our teachers will be ready, and I think our families will be ready. We're going to be surveying our families and our staff in the next few weeks. Part of it is to see a family comfort level. Are people willing to send their kids back? Will they put them on a bus? We all know wearing masks has somewhat become a little bit political. Are there people who aren't going to want their kids to wear masks? And what if it's required? So every time we think of questions, we think of more. It's like the never-ending cycle. So we decide we have a place where we just put every question we get, and will staff wear masks? What do you do about if you're a speech person and you have to look at the formation of the mouth? Right now I'm looking at purchasing masks with clear faces, and so people can see lip movement. So all of these different things you think about. So I don't know what it's going to look like in the fall, but I can guarantee that Unit 5 will be ready for whatever it looks like. Leanna said, my eyes are really bad. Can someone read me what Leanna said?
Yes, she said, any more info on summer plans? How can they help? And then she said, thank you, Dayna, for your leadership and collaboration, and big thanks to the teachers and family coordinators. They are rock stars and deserve so much attention. Appreciation.
Well, thank you. And I know Angie and Cindy on here, we all appreciate, I don't want to speak for them, but I know we appreciate the kind words from our community during this, and people really were very appreciative. And this was kind of those and other duties as assigned. I know Angie as a teacher did things that aren't in her job description. Cindy did. Angie's principal actually was one of the people who followed the bus every Wednesday to pass out items like toilet paper. Never thought that was going to be what she was doing. Summer, we're just starting to roll out some activities, and we're using it as a test. We are taking the temperature of every athlete before they start. We are asking them questions. I just purchased signs to put up on all the fields. I'm excited to say we are still planning to go forward with an in-person graduation on August 1st, and we hope to have information about that in the next week or so. So it's baby steps. We're waiting on the state, but we're doing what we can do.
I know, thinking about the masks and everything, I've been in several different groups this summer, and even as a first grade teacher, if you can think of a classroom of 20-some children and playing a math game together or reading a book together, like, we really have to rethink the social distancing thing just in the classroom. And it's hard to wrap my mind around yet, but I know it's already things we're working on and trying to problem solve on how we can do it in the classroom.
One of the things that we're wondering is how imagine a custodian in a school. How are we going to clean all the surfaces? They're already so busy as it is. You know, how are they? I've been working out of my office. I've been doing my own doorknob and my surface and that sort of thing. You know, I looked at, should I put a plastic barrier on my desk? A lot of people come in. It's because when I'm in my office, I don't want to, you know, wear my mask if I'm in my office. So again, it's all of these different things. You know, I bet Angie's thinking about her classroom and all the extra stuff she has. What if some kid touches that? And then how's she going to clean it for the next kid? We know that it's not believed to spread on surfaces to the degree that we initially thought, but are we going to be the school district that takes that chance? I don't think so.
Any other questions for Angie or Dayna? Oh, Mary Ann, did I see your
I
hand?
just have a question for Angie. And I'm sorry if you did talk about this and I missed it. Did you have any students that just did not participate at all or participated in very small increments?
Yes. And all we just tried to do is keep the communication up as it was. And during this time, because we didn't have a lot of technology devices for the younger kids, and the ISBE put out that we won't do any new learning, but more brushing up on skills. And then as it went down, all the parents had to do is fill out a Google sheet saying, yes, their child say 3 things off the choice boards or what during that week. Unfortunately, that's not something that we can really, I don't know the right words. Yes, I tried to engage and get all of my students in, but that would have been impossible to have them all fully engaged.
And I do think that's a problem. Our neighbor across the street is a 3rd grade teacher at Cedar Ridge. And so I've had a lot of conversations with her, and that's kind of been her experience as well.
One of the things we did as a district, I believe, and don't quote me on this, I believe we had about 53 students district-wide who we never really made contact with or didn't engage regularly, at least to some degree. And we actually sent someone out to homes to check on the well-being and just try to get them engaged. It was hard. You know, first off, I think, and Angie can probably attest to this, the closer you get to May, the less engaged kids sometimes become. So, you know, there's that regular fall off at the end of the year. You know, they're getting excited. You do field trips. They're ready for summer. So did that happen earlier for some? Absolutely. But we really worked hard to reach out to families and see if there was a barrier to them engaging, and fix those barriers if there was. The other thing I would say is we also have absenteeism during the school year. So there could be some chronic absenteeism, like even if we were in person. So it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison.
I know, like some of my families, if you think if both families are, if the parents are still working during the day and you have students home alone or with minimal childcare during the day, they probably weren't going to make a class meeting during the day, or they didn't have the technology for it. And I know some teachers, like when I found that out, then I would do an evening meeting or a phone call meeting with them just to keep that connectivity up. But by the end of this time, I did have contact, whether it was minimal or not, I had contact with all the families. And once a week with my principal, we met and, okay, who is it we haven't heard from this week? And so it really was monitored.
And the other thing that really we feel played an impact is the state had told us no student could do worse than they had done at the time we went on our remote learning. Some kids will take that and think, I want to do better. Some kids will take that and think, I'm all done for summer. I can't do any worse than I am. So, you know, that was a challenge, but Unit 5 has 13,000 students, and to keep engaged, you know, all but 50, while we'd want everyone to be engaged, those kids might have moved. You know, you would find that some kids went to stay with relatives, maybe if mom and dad were working. So the teachers did a really good job of trying to engage, even if minimal, with everyone.
Laura, did you have a question?
Just a comment. As a Unit 5 parent, I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that everyone in Unit 5 did. I had a freshman and a senior, and you tried to do so much for the seniors, and I know that was difficult, but just know as a parent, it's very much appreciated.
Thank you, Laura. We have really gotten very good feedback from our families. Our families were amazing during this. It was really remarkable. And so you heard it here first. We're getting ready to go with that August 1st graduation. That is not out in public yet. So there you go. Be ready.
It's good to hear from a parent to know how they felt as far as what efforts the district did make. I know that I am very grateful that my children have been long gone, that I didn't have to work with them on math, and just really grateful to both of you and to all of the staff at Unit 5 for all that you did.
You know, Beth brings up a kind of a funny point, but you know, the thing with Beth and Alan is that if they couldn't figure it out, they would be able to reach out to people and help figure it out. A lot of our families, they struggled in school. So this is really overwhelming. And that's why we really tried to be very all-encompassing and build relationships, and try not to be very judgmental of what the parent was capable of doing with the student. I know that I was working. I mean, there were some days early on, I was literally working 15 hours a day. And I said, what if I would have had a kiddo who was young enough to be remote learning? My youngest graduated from West last year, but I don't know what I would have done. So we really tried to show grace to everyone we could, because this was a new experience for everyone, and everyone was, you know, taking it in different ways.
I think across the board, we all became more empathetic and understanding of the needs of families. We were all in the same boat together. Whether you had young kids at home or not, you still weren't able to go to the grocery store and get toilet paper or cleaning supplies. So truly the empathy and understanding for everyone was pretty amazing.
Anybody else have questions or comments? I want to thank.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Hey, Leanna.
I switched devices and then came back to a little wired opportunity. So I'm convinced that my audio wouldn't work because I was going to poke fun at Beth Sender being involved with the first grade class and, you know, correlation. So I'm convinced that's why it muted me out. But again, I just, being involved with Oakdale Elementary, I can't say enough how appreciative everybody is in the community for the efforts of Dayna and the teachers and the family coordinators. And I hope as we go forward that if there are ways we can help with whatever that looks like, if it's food or if it's frisbees or whatever it might be. I think there's a lot of people that have been helping and are willing to help. And so again, I just want to say thank you again and just appreciate all the efforts by Unit 5 and District 87 for the children and for the families.
Thank you, Leanna. We don't know what it's going to look like yet, our needs, but I know that things are going to have to, we're going to have to change the way we do business. So for example, Angie might have a cup of scissors for people to borrow. She's not going to be able to have a cup of scissors this year. So we're going to have to figure out how each child is going to have their own supplies. And we do that some. We partner with the Back to School Alliance, but we think we're going to need above and beyond that this year, because we aren't going to be able to share tools. And maybe there's something special in Angie's classroom that she uses that she's going to have to cycle 2 or 3 because to allow for cleaning. So we don't know what that's going to look like, but thank you for the offer. And I'm sure we'll take care of Angie's classroom first, because she spoke to you guys.
And she's working with Alan Sender. Those 2 reasons right there.
Right. Write that
Now
down,
just put
Angie.
the plug in so that he comes back next year.
Yeah.
I know the math group I've been working with this summer, we've already talked about how, of course, in first grade, numbers and math needs to be very concrete. They need to have it in their hands for counting. If you count 6 things and you see them, you understand the number 6 than just writing 6 on the board. So we've already talked about how instead of the kids going over to the container with counters, they're each going to have like a toolkit at their desk with their own math manipulatives and stuff. So already kind of thinking the lines of adjustments that we'll make in the classroom, and think of how many books you have in a room. If kids use a book, if they have books in their book boxes, and they would return them to the library and right away you'd reshelf them, that's probably not going to be able to happen this year. The books will, I assume, sit for 14 days and then be able to go back into recirculation. So it will certainly be interesting how we're able to make these changes and make it happen. But I have faith with all the changes and teamwork and unity we've done already that we'll be able to do it.
Well, I'm grateful for dedicated teachers like Angie and Dayna, who's, I think, broad knowledge of the community has really helped.
Not a teacher. You would not want me teaching your children. Let's just clarify that.
And I want to thank you both again for an extra burden on you to present today, but I really feel like we've all been enlightened and want to, I think a lot of us want to feel pretty helpless about how we can help. And so maybe, Dayna, put the word out. There are folks out here who want to help.
Thank you. And there's a lot of people who want to help, who wanted to help early on, and we will reach out, because we do know as people get back to work, some of that's going to dry up and we're going to need other sources for help. So I've taken a picture of everyone sitting here, so I know who we can reach out to. Even you people who don't have your camera shown, I've got your names, and we will reach out, because we do know that there's new issues coming up for our families. Right now nobody can be evicted, and that's going to change. So there's so many pieces out there that this is not over just because we're hitting phase 4 on Friday. Supposedly that this is not over. There's going to be a big need in this community. So
well, she put herself on mute. Okay. Well, thank you all very much. I hope you found this as interesting and informative as I have, and want to thank you all for experimenting with us, and hope that you found it interesting and that you want to participate in our other 2 opportunities. Next Tuesday, 12 to 1:30, conversation about race, and July 9th from 8:30 to 10 in the morning about food insecurity and housing in the community. So everybody enjoy this beautiful afternoon. Thanks again, Dayna and Angie, Michele, for putting this together. And
Sure thing.
we'll see you soon.
And if you have not signed up for one of the other sessions and you do want to, just email me, and then I will put you on the attendance list to get the evite for the next couple of Zoom meetings.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.